What's up, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Morning Lifter. This is episode 2, and we are two smart men who love dumbbells, talking about all things strength and leadership. Shawn, what is happening?
Not much, buddy. How are you?
I am living the dream. Did you work out this morning?
I did. Yep. End of this month's cycle, so I got this last week to go, and then I'm revamping. So yeah. I change every single month. I've been doing that for probably 10, 11 years now. So that's
wild.
I've tried to do 6 weeks, but I get bored. If I go more than 4 weeks on the same program, I get bored. And so I have to have variety, even if it's just a little bit of a difference. I might even keep the core sets the same, but I've got enough equipment down there where I have the ability to have variety. I'd like to get a leg press. That's the one thing I'd like.
Ooh.
But space is limited.
Always is. So we got a big episode today, not gonna lie. Today we're talking about finding your purpose. I think I'm gonna title the episode Lift and Life with a Purpose. Before we get into that, I have a couple of just opening housekeeping items. First and foremost is that there's a website, morninglifter.com, where we have a lot of print content. That's where you can find all of your programs and the stuff that you've been doing. That's actually how we got started. So I will link the site in the description, morninglifter.com. Also, we have a store, pretty sick t-shirts. Check them out. The second one is that this is a work in progress. We're working on it. This is episode 2. Nobody became really good at anything the first time they tried. So we appreciate all feedback and comments. You can hit us up on social media, drop us an email, whatever. We want to hear about it. So as long as we got those two things out of the way, we can dive into what makes a good program and how to, program around your training goals. So first up, I have some pretty much just like things you hear people say. Mainly for me personally, a lot of friends in college and grad school were like, oh, Bryce, like, write me a workout program. Like, I want to get back into the gym. And the first question I will always ask is, well, what do you want to do? What's your goal? What's your purpose? Why do you want to work out? And you hear things like, oh, I want to get big. I want to get strong. I just want to, tone up and all that. So you got to really kind of assess and digest what each one means. So I figured we could run through some of that today, get into some questions at the end, and go from there. Sound good?
Sounds great.
All right, so first one is I want to get big. I want to put on muscle. I want to get yoked, whatever, summer shreds, all the above, beach body season. So when you hear that, what do you think?
Well, I've had a variety of people come and talk to me before about, putting on size or, things of that nature. I think it goes back to what you said earlier. What's your goal? What are you planning on doing? The other thing I see is consistency. There's a lot of people that just don't want to be consistent with what they want to do. And probably the biggest issue that I see is that people don't know what their plan is going into the gym for that day. There's nothing written down. So they don't really know what they're doing, or they're going to go in and they're going to just kind of, mosey around. I see a lot of people that will, when I used to work out at a gym, people would come in and they would just go from one station to the next, and there never really seemed to be any rhyme or reason behind it. But if you're gonna add on size, there's rep schemes, there's total amounts, there's things that you actually have to focus on to actually achieve those desired results. You have to diet. If you're planning on getting shredded, then you have to actually be conscientious of what you put in your body. If you're saying you're going to get put on size, but then you're going home and eating a chocolate milkshake ice cream, that's not going to work. You're defeating a lot of your purpose. So there's so much.
Yeah, but if you put protein powder in it, then it's all good, right?
That's not it. Yeah, you're eliminating pretty much everything that you're trying to accomplish. So there's some discipline that takes place, and the the key is ultimately is having a plan with desired results at the end, and then having the discipline to stick to it.
Yeah, so getting into that plan a little bit. So if you're looking to build, muscle mass, like put on lean muscle tissue, you really got to work towards like a hypertrophy based program. What would typically be considered like the bro split more than anything, working, some heavy compound movements and then some of that isolation work at the end. So I have in the notes here, a lot of time under tension, some eccentric, some isometric holds, basically anything that's going to really drive that stress into the muscle tissue. Like you said, also with proper recovery and nutrition as well. But I don't know, can you talk a little bit more about I think you mentioned the Encyclopedia of Bodybuilding from Arnold in the last episode. So did he hit on anything like that? I mean, he's obviously one of the best bodybuilders of all time. So
the biggest thing about Arnold was volume. Arnold was big on volume. Now he would go into the gym and he would work for 5 hours a day, but the average person can't do that. So you've got to be able to find things that you can perform within 45 minutes to an hour. Now, that means that you should superset. I'm a big believer in supersets. Just about everything I do is supersets.
Supersets are great.
It's been proven that you can get more done in less time because you're also building up your cardiovascular system. So I'm a big believer in that. Do 3 to 4 sets, and if you're looking for size, you got to fall in that 8 to 12. And your rest is in between. Your transition from one exercise to the next. That's the time that you have to rest. So focusing on that, I think, can really help you, especially if you don't have time to do your cardio. Your cardio is considered in between those supersets. So,
right.
For me, when I was going through the encyclopedia, it was really interesting, and he had tiered programs too for the most novice lifter to the most experienced, and there was that tiered system allowed you to kind of improve as you gained experience lifting weights. So and there were a lot of the exercises back in the 70s and 80s, the exercises were pretty basic. They were the bench press, they were the squats, they were the deadlifts, they were the barbell rows. Just about everything was done with a barbell. There's so many more options today. You've got the machines, you've got the isometrics, you've got a lot of things that can target different muscles in different ways. So you have to be selective, but there's nothing wrong with going back to the classics and just using a barbell, because that can really be the mainstay to get you started.
Right, absolutely. So I actually did find some research on this. Me being the scientist, I have to, I want it in proof. So I did find a study that I actually might want to review for the site and do a full article review. It got into a lot of the muscle protein synthesis aspects of, like bodybuilding, whether it be they looked at taking 30% of a 1 rep max to failure versus 90% of a 1 rep max in a given exercise. And I think they used the leg extension, which is pretty standard in physiology research. Just given the nature of the movement, it's very easy to load. Doesn't take a whole lot of time to warm up. Anybody can do it type deal. But so they measured muscle protein synthesis rates 4 hours and 24 hours after a workout with 2 groups. The first group took, like I said, 30% of a 1 rep max to failure, and the second group took 90% of a 1 rep max to failure. After 4 hours, the muscle protein synthesis rates of the 2 groups were identical, but after 24 hours, the group that did 30% to failure in rep range actually outperformed the 90% to failure group in muscle protein synthesis. Again, that was after the 24 hours after the workout intervention. So if you're looking to build muscle and generate that muscle protein synthesis, the low weights, higher reps to failure is definitely the way to go, which basically just goes back to cranking up the perceived intensity with supersets, drop sets, isometric holds, all the above.
It would be interesting to see what the failure rep was, like what rep number did they fail at. That would have been interesting to know.
Yeah, I don't know. Like I said, it was they used the leg extension, so I mean it's your quad function, not really like a big compound movement.
Yeah.
Basically bodybuilding, a lot of reps, a lot of sets. So under proper recovery and nutrition, you can make it grow. So moving on to the next one, I want to get strong. What do what does a strength program look like? How do you make gains in the strength realm?
Well, there's a lot of ways to do that. When I was a strength coach at the high school level, that I used to develop a program. So they were based on anywhere from 8 to 9 week programs, and it was a slow build up. We would test to start, and then I'd base the program off of that. So everything was percentage based. Everything that I did was percentage based, and we would work down through a pyramid based off of our core sets, and then every all those core sets had some type of complementary auxiliary, and that's still to this day kind of what I do now, but I incorporate the supersets. But you should have your core set, whatever your core set is, and everybody's different. I mean, Westside Barbell is different from other strength programs too. I mean, they don't even test their main core lift. They focus on weaknesses, which I think is a really cool. It's a really cool methodology, and so I think ultimately variety is cool. If you're doing it by yourself, you've got to figure out how your body works, and I think that's the hardest part. So there's got to be some trial and error there, but there's again, there's nothing wrong with going more sets, low reps. That's also been proven to show to increase strength. So, but work pyramid. The 5-3-1 method is really good. I know a lot of people use that.
Oh yeah, big 5-3-1 guy.
Yeah, and so 5-3-1 can be very, very effective, especially to work towards testing your max. And the heavier weight that you use, the more central nervous system is going to be impacted, and it's going to contribute to that as well. So it'll be beneficial to you. So lifting heavy is a good thing, but you got to be smart about it too. If you're lifting by yourself, you have to be careful. I've been lifting by myself for 3-4 years now, in terms of just in my basement, and I'm always conscientious of that. You got to be able to handle the weight that you can handle on your own.
Yep.
But if you're at a gym, ask somebody to spot you up. Most people are more than willing to help. I mean, Bryce, you work out at a gym, so you know how it is. So
yeah, you get some guys that are a little too willing at times,
yeah.
But everyone's usually pretty cool about it, especially when like the bench press is the big one, right? I mean, squats you can dump effectively onto the safeties if you have to. Deadlifting, drop the weight, but guys, there's always somebody that will help you, even if it's just the gym staff in general, so. But that's a good point. I'm glad that you brought up the central nervous system shock, because that's some of the notes that I had written down. Is that first off, you're training strength. For me, I instantly gravitate towards powerlifting. Obviously, that's I'm looking to compete sometime in the next year. So you're training the movement patterns. You're not necessarily training muscle groups. The muscle groups will get stronger as a byproduct of the movement patterns. And then you get into some, like you said, the accessory work, strengthening your weaknesses and things like that. But also too, you highlighted the central nervous system shock. And that central nervous system shock is what allows a 130-pound woman to deadlift 500 pounds. And that's Steffi Cohen, who's a world record holder, and she's a beast. But you're not necessarily going to get huge from doing any of these, but especially if you're training for strength or powerlifting or following like a 5-3-1 or something like that, mainly because of the rep ranges due to the intensity levels being so high. And I actually found another article that I'm going to link in the description of this episode that relates to neuromuscular stimulation, which is caused by central nervous system function. So after a test group performed a 10x5 back squat at 80% of their 1 rep max, which is a lot of reps at 80%, their neuromuscular fatigue lasted in between 48 and 72 hours. So it can take up to 3 days for you to adequately have your central nervous system respond to a heavy strength day, heavy high intensity strength day. So that's one thing that's really important to keep in mind when you're programming for these events. If you're, doing near max or sub max or anything close to 1 rep max pull, or a deadlift, squat, bench, whatever it is, that you need to really try and space those out as best as possible. And that's where the programming comes into play. So you said, you're a big 5-3-1 guy when you were coaching?
No, I wasn't. I did more of a, it's actually kind of hard to think back. I did a lot of 4x5s, and we did 4x8s, and the pyramid system, it was more of it was on a weekly basis. The pyramid was on a weekly basis, so we would start as high as 10, and then we would work our way down. And so the rep ranges stayed the same, for those 4 sets, but the percentages would slowly increase from week to week. 1 week, it wasn't necessarily the reps that would pyramid, it was the percentages that would pyramid. So 1 week it might be 80%, 83, 85, 87. And then the next week we might start off at 85, 87, 90, 92, or 93%. And so we would build the percentages but keep the rep ranges the same. And I saw a lot of really good improvement with that. And then after those core sets, we'd work into our auxiliaries that would complement whatever we were doing that day. If it was chest, we'd work, a dumbbell bench, and we'd work shoulders into that. A lot of it too was to work injury prevention, because with football you have to work that. If you don't, then you're fooling yourself. So that was a big part of our program too, was to help protect against injury. So but we had guys that were squatting 500 plus. We had guys that were benching 300 plus. It all takes time. There was one school we did some band work. We did some resistance band work, and that paid off big dividends too. So depending on the materials that I had, I could adjust accordingly. But I would say for myself now, I'm more of a 5-3-1, and I'll pyramid that with bigger sets. So I'll do an 8-set core exercise, and I've got these posted too on the website. All these lifts that I'm doing, but they're all, the more the max days are all 5s, 3s, and 1s, and then the lighter days will consist of sets of 10, 8, and I might finish at 5. It kind of just depends on what I'm doing that day and how I feel. That's the other thing. Not every day is the best day, and there are days where I fail at the end. That happened last week. It's not always the best, but it happens, and that's you find out where your threshold is. But that's also how you get stronger. Training to failure. Oh yeah. That's how you get stronger. So those are, it's all doing it within I can't overemphasize the safety point of view, just because that's so important, especially if you're doing it by yourself. Knowing your own limits. But the other thing is that there's no ego involved there. I don't have a great squat anymore, but I also don't have a great squat because I'm not concerned about having a great squat just to have a great squat. I'm doing what I can do, and I'm trying to get stronger that way. So it's the older you get, your body changes, but as long as you're continuing to work towards a purpose, I think that's what's important. But
we're gonna turn you into a master's powerlifter here soon. I think that starts at over 40.
Yeah, I don't know about that. There's guys that lift a lot more weights than me. So,
how do you feel about deloads, especially working in the strength realm? I know you mentioned the central nervous system fatigue. You deload often?
No, I don't.
Did you ever program them when you were a strength coach?
No, because the nice thing is that school was built in. We had enough. There was natural built-in days. That the kids got rest, and so we never really had to worry about that. Whether it was like a 5-day break, or there was spring break, or there was fall break, or there was winter break,
That's true.
It didn't really matter, because not only did we have those natural days built in, but especially in the off season, we would lose kids to basketball, and then kids from another sport were coming in. And so we didn't always have the same group of kids. So when one group of kids were training really hard, they would leave to go to basketball. We would get a different group of kids in, and so we always kind of had...
kind of took care of itself, right?
It did, yeah, it did. And that was something that we never really had to focus on too much. The kids that were just, football only, we still had programs for them. But, that's, again, where those natural off days were built in, where kids never got burned out. And we only did... it was 3 or 4 days a week, and so there was enough time off that we felt like they were doing okay. There's differing opinions on deloads. Some people like them, some people don't. I don't know how I feel about them. I've never really deloaded. I guess the only time I would deload is when I'm on vacation, if I can't if I can't actually find a weight room. And that's only for a week. I'm the type of person where if I'm not doing something, I feel gross. I don't feel accomplished. So I think it goes back to listening to your body. That's kind of from what some of the articles that I've read. There's a lot of science behind it. I haven't really read into the science behind it, but I think part of it is
auto-regulation.
Part of it is listening to what your body has to say. So if you're starting to feel exhausted every single day and you're not seeing any more gains and you're lethargic and you don't want to do it anymore, that's probably a sign where you might need to take a week off or just do some light sets and not do anything real hard. Because when you start becoming disinterested or it starts to become a chore, that's your body telling you time to slow down. And that's when
100%.
That's when you need to regroup and then come back a week later. And there's plenty of studies that suggest the same. You take a week off and you actually come back and you're stronger because your body actually has a chance to repair and regroup. So, but I think for me, like, because I program a different method every month, it's allowing my body, I'm not deadlifting every single day or every single week,
Right, that's true too. You change it up a lot.
So. And so I'm not bench pressing every single week. I might use a different bar, or I might do it a different method. I might go from bench press to block bench to floor press. So there might be 2 or 3 months in between where I'm actually performing a bench press, a standard bench press, So by adding that variety, my body has a time to rest with that. Now I'm still performing a similar movement, but I'm not getting burned out from doing another week of bench press. I'm just so tired of doing that. I don't get that feeling. It's like, okay, here's another week with a different exercise. This is great. And so for me, I think that's been a great motivating factor. It's just the variety. It
keeps you interested too, right? I imagine.
Absolutely. And that's I think all part of weightlifting, and that's what keeps people motivated to go back is when you become interested in it, regardless of what level you're at. I'll be the first to tell you I'm not the strongest guy in the world by any means. I don't even care about that anymore. I'm trying to get as strong as I can possibly get, and trying to stay in the best shape for myself, and for other people, everybody's different and everybody has different goals. And for that person, they've got to figure out how they're going to go about doing it. And that's the most important thing. That's why I think programming is so important. Regardless of what program you try, whether it's 5-3-1 or sets of 8, sets of 10s, if you're going to do the German volume training, if you're going to do 10 sets of 10, those are all different, but proven methods.
Mm-hmm.
And it's going back and it's trying something, but not trying it for a day and then say, oh, I'm so sore, I'm going to quit. No, you got to fight past that. You got to try it for a month. You got to try it for 6 weeks.
Right.
And then try something else and find a niche that works for you and that makes you happy. And that's, I think, the most important thing out of anything else.
Yeah, I think circling back to the whole deload thing, well, first off, I agree. The best program for any given person is the one that's going to actually get you into the gym and keep you consistent on it, for one, and something that you enjoy doing. Same with like dieting, right? The best diet is the one that works, you know? But two, deloads, I have only ever gotten to a point where I legitimately needed to take one deload. And I was after about 8 weeks straight of just a powerlifting strength block, to the point where I was spent mentally, physically, and I actually needed a deload. And I think the average Joe, kind of like what you said with your students and your football players, doesn't get there to the point of actually needing a deload, whether it be from, like you said, vacations or a long weekend or the constant variations. I think a deload is oftentimes overutilized in terms of the average Joe, or the casual weightlifter, so to speak. But I think they definitely have their place in time for those that need them.
Yeah, I don't think it's necessarily something that is frowned upon. It's not like saying, some people are like, well, you're a wuss if you do it. No, I'm not.
That's not it.
It goes back to just, if you think you need a week off or you think you need to taper down for a week, then do it. And if you're better for it when you come back the next week, then great. Maybe that's something you need to implement. But it goes back to everybody's body responds in different ways. And that's where you have to start. Yeah.
Okay, so next one, CrossFit. How do you feel about CrossFit?
I don't know. I think it's neat, and it's really revolutionized the fitness industry. I have a lot of respect for what CrossFitters do. And it is, the CrossFit games are pretty cool to watch. It's not something I could do, not anymore. There's a lot of high impact. I think it's, if you're looking to compete, that's a great way to go about it. And it has helped a lot of people lose a lot of weight, but it's not something I've ever bought into. I think mainly because I come from more of the standard, not necessarily powerlifting, but I come from, the school of standard weightlifting in preparation for a sport, and I think that's kind of why I view CrossFit a little bit differently. Because I always used weightlifting, growing up, weightlifting was to prepare for something else. Where CrossFit,
it wasn't to be good at weightlifting.
Right. Where CrossFit is to be good at weightlifting, or to be good at an Olympic lift, or to be good at, climbing the ropes and doing the agilities and those types of things, where if that's your cup of tea, awesome, go for it. You can implement CrossFit type deals into, a standard weightlifting program. But for myself, I've never really been interested in it, mainly because I see what they do and I think my body would fall apart. I just kind of like I think my body responds better to the more low impact stuff. Plus I like the low impact stuff. I don't want to be doing overhead snatches. I've got some pretty nasty injuries from my time in football, and so there are some things that I can't do. I'd be terrified to do an overhead snatch. I don't know if my shoulder could handle it. So that is not something that that I'm super interested in, but it's CrossFit's taken on a life of its own, and it's become big business. And Reebok took a chance on that. When they got out of sponsoring a lot of the major sports. They got out of the NFL. I don't think they're in the NHL anymore. They invested pretty much their entire company's stake on CrossFit. They put a huge CrossFit facility in their world headquarters, and they were going to live or die by CrossFit, and it's paid off for them. It was a good investment, it ended up being. So, there's a lot of pros to it. I think if there's somebody who's not sure what route to go and wants structure, that's where you go. I think you should try that. Try it. There's no reason not to, because there's somebody who's going to tell you what to do and when to do it and how to do it. And there's a community around that. There's a community of people who go to those CrossFit classes and work out. And so there's going to be a lot of people there that's going to be supportive of you and, what you want to do. It could be a great way for a beginner.
Yeah, I think so. I have an excerpt from Greg Glassman's Fitness in 100 Words, which has really become pretty memorialized almost in CrossFit. It came out in 2002, back when CrossFit was in its infancy. So we have, he summarizes world-class fitness in 100 words. I'm going to paraphrase it a little bit and just pull out the major points. Practice and train the major lifts. Similarly, practice and master the basics of gymnastics. Bike, run, swim, row, etc. hard and fast. 5 or 6 days per week. Mix these elements in as many combinations and patterns as creativity will allow. Routine is the enemy. Keep workouts short and intense. Regularly learn and play new sports. So I think whether people realize it or not, there are more elements of CrossFit in a generic workout than people will give them credit for. There are certain elements that I really agree with in that, like a circuit training, high intensity interval training, any type of metabolic conditioning. I mean, research has shown that all those things are pretty good for you.
And that's
right?
That's why too so many of those athletes are shredded, because it's all HIIT training. It's all high intensity training at 90% plus, and as fast and as hard as you can go. And that's why some of those people get super shredded.
Right. But the caveat to that is, and you kind of alluded to it too, the issue that I have with CrossFit, and I used to train at like a CrossFit facility, a CrossFit-like facility. So it's not that I hate CrossFit. I do not believe that the average Joe amateur CrossFitter should be performing the highly technical Olympic lifts for time. As soon as you add the as hard and as fast as possible, you dramatically increase the risk for injury on individuals who have not perfected their technique. Now, yes, the people you watch on TV who are professional CrossFitters and who have done those lifts more times than they can count, like, sure, go for it, knock it out, because they're doing CrossFit 5 to 6 hours a day and can do that, that clean and jerk or that snatch in their sleep. Matt Fraser used to be an Olympic level weightlifter, I think for Team Canada. He might have been the United States in like the World Juniors. So obviously he's going to be really good at the clean and jerk and the snatch, right? But as soon as you put that time cap on those movements for the average Joe, like that risk reward is something I'm just not willing to take and to fully buy in and drink that Kool-Aid. But other than that, I mean, I love everything about it. Like I said, I do HIIT work or metabolic conditioning, whatever you want to call it, and that basically is derived from CrossFit. So
yeah, there's a lot that can be achieved from it, but it's safety's the key. It goes back to safety.
Yep.
If you're not comfortable with a lift, and until you can get it down, if you can't do an overhead snatch and you can't do a snatch squat, start with a PVC pipe. That's how we taught our kids. Started with a snatch
I think that's
squat.
what they do in CrossFit too. And there's a lot of coaching that goes involved into it, and I'm sure over time you get pretty good at it and all that stuff, but that's just my biggest gripe. Overall, I like CrossFit. It's good. If you're really just looking to get quote unquote in shape, and you need the structure and the coaching and all that in the community, then it's probably a pretty good avenue for somebody who's looking to, make those lifestyle changes. The last topic I have here on our episode outline is sport-specific training. So, long-distance endurance running, cycling, swimming, etc. Thoughts on those?
sport-specific training.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of where both of our lifting backgrounds began, right? Our lifting careers.
Yeah. Training for a specific sport in terms of weightlifting is, that's going to be really important. No matter what it is, no matter what sport you're doing. Training just for one sport, I don't agree with. I think you should play as many sports as possible. But training for, just about any sport, and here's the great thing about it, just about any sport has explosive movements built into it. And so you should be training those explosive lifts, whether it's a squat, whether it's a power clean, push jerk, a bench press, whatever it is. Most sports have some type of explosive movement, and they're going to have alternating isometric movements too, where you're using one leg or one arm at a time, and so there has to be a good marriage between the explosive lifts and the complementary lifts. You don't need to work isolation as much, that's at the very end. That should be the tail end of the workout, where maybe you're doing one set or two sets, but the majority of everything you do should be explosion and power and speed to get you as big as and as strong as fast as possible. So whether you start off with squats and then you work into lunges, or you're doing a box squat, things like that, that's going to help you develop that power and that force that you need for whatever that sport is. You've got to be able to mirror a lot of the movements in the weight room that you're doing in that sport. And that's the one thing that I've noticed a lot of. If you're not mirroring the movements, then you're doing it wrong, I think. You've got to be able to transition that stuff. And one of the things that I always said as a coach was, if you could be a 600-pound squatter, but if you don't translate that onto the field, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. So you've got to be able to find ways to lift so that you can translate it onto the field, onto the court, wherever you're playing, so that it can be beneficial for you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, kind of going back to that too, the sport specificness of it. So I was a swimmer my whole life in college. We did a lot of box jumps, box squats, that explosiveness of getting off the start, off the block, and off the walls on flip turns and open turns. So anything that had an explosive squat-like movement was something that we trained super, super heavily. But with that is that muscle mass does not float. So therefore, me currently being 235 pounds was not good when I was a swimmer. So therefore, I trained completely differently. Whereas now, I'm kind of training just to be strong. I was training to be strong in the water when I was swimming. I was obviously a lot lighter back then too, but kind of hits on what you had talked about. You want your training or your workouts to mirror the movement patterns that you do in your sport. That pretty much wraps up all I had for the different kinds of styles of training. You can go into a lot more depth and detail with all of them. I mean, this is kind of just a basic high level overview. Really wanted to relate it back to train with a purpose. Have a purpose in what you want to do in the gym. Make sure it aligns with your goals. Also in life too, right? I think we can tie this into the leadership side of Morning Lifter Strength and Leadership is have a purpose in life too, right? Your purpose in life is not to go to work for 8 hours a day. I'll tell you that, right up front. So I think, that's a big motivating factor for individuals is know what you want to complete outside of your career. You're the prime example of that with what you do and with Morning Lifter. So
yeah, one of the most important reasons why I like to lift in the morning is when you're done, there's a sense of accomplishment. No matter what, whether you like your job or not, as long as you can go in there with the right mindset of saying, well, I'm going to go and I'm going to accomplish something, or I'm going to impact someone. If you can go in there and have the right mindset and make sure that your mental factory is running in a positive way, then you're going to have positive impacts. You can make positive influences.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. I think, we alluded to it in the first pod that lifting in the morning sets the tone for the day, right? And changes your mindset. I notice it only because I do not train every morning, but once or twice a week I will. lift in the morning, and I feel better throughout the day. I really do. Keeps me going, keeps me energized, and I feel like I'm just in a better mood. I think I have a quote down here. I think it was Dwayne The Rock Johnson. I could be wrong on that, so apologies in advance. He said something like, don't go to work for 8 hours a day and then go home and not work on your own goals. You're not tired, you're uninspired. So you're going to touch on that and how what you do outside of work can transition into how it can affect your career in work.
I mean, if the work that you have right now is not what you want to do, then you have to find time to work on yourself. Jim Rohn talks a lot about that, where, you know, if there's a passion that you have and it's not your job, then you need to work full-time on your income and work part-time on your fortune. And so you can't complain when you come home from work and then sit on the couch until you go to sleep. You know, you've got to find time in order to make that become a reality. So, you know, everybody has the same amount of time, so you can't say, well, I wish I had more time. That doesn't work.
24 hours in a day.
You've got to be able to actually make the time. You've got to make the time in order to get that done. And it's not always easy, but it's the priorities that you have to set. If it's important enough, then you'll make the time to get that accomplished no matter what. But if it's not that important to you, then you're going to be stuck complaining. And it's not easy. It's really not. It's hard. But it's worth it. Once you start seeing the effects and the impacts, then you realize it's how much it's worth it. Once you're sick and tired of being sick and tired, I think that's when the real change can occur. But until then, it's not going to happen. You have to be willing and able to take the risk and to kind of jump off that ledge, as Steve Harvey talks about.
You alluded to how hard it is. It's not easy. Well, if it were easy, everybody would be a millionaire. Everybody would be super successful. And two, it's tough waking up every day and going to work, not doing what you love. I don't know about you. I am fortunate enough I do not have that issue. But in the same token, it's tough coming home every day and grinding on what you want your future to hold, like long nights, researching for Morning Lifter, or waking up early on a Sunday morning to record like right now, I think you have to choose your hard, right? Which one, pick the lesser of the two evils. If it's something you really want, like you just said, you're going to find a way. You're going to make the time and you're going to be able to succeed in the long run.
Yeah, it's true. And the more you do it, the less, it may not feel hard because you enjoy doing it. The key is you just have to continue to work on yourself and hone your craft until you figure out which route you need to go.
Yeah, totally. I 100% agree. You want to get into some questions?
Yeah, sure.
They're pretty good. I got 3 good ones here. Man, maybe 4. 3 for sure. Shawn, can you bench press your wife, and for how many reps?
Well, yeah, I could bench press her. So, I don't know. I could probably get 15 to 20, depending, I would imagine.
Yeah.
As long as she would stay straight and not move around.
Speaking from experience, that's the hardest part.
Yeah, so, but I don't think that would be too difficult. I would hope I'd be able to. There's no reason I shouldn't, as long as, everything else stayed constant. I throw my kids around enough, so I would hope that I'd be able to do that.
There you go. Yeah, I can speak from experience. Back in June, I was at a bachelor party and was asked if I could bench press one of the other groomsmen, who is, he might have been like 180 pounds or so. And the weight isn't an issue. It's the distribution of it and having the other person not squirm around the entire time. Now, I can walk into a gym and put 180 pounds on a bar and bench it, 15, 20 times. But when the other person's wiggling around and it's not evenly distributed between your two hands and you're not exactly sure where to place those hands, it gets a little dicey.
Yeah.
But I think you can definitely squeak out a dozen.
Yeah, there's no reason that wouldn't be able to be accomplished.
I believe in you. Next one. This is a good one. Should women do different exercises in the gym than men?
No, I don't agree with that. They don't need to. And the biggest thing is that women, the majority of women, just from basic research, there's a lot of articles out there. There's a lot of women who are afraid to do squats and bench presses and everything else that men do because they're afraid that they're going to get big and bulky. Not going to happen. It's not going to happen. You're going to get tone, but you're not going to end up looking like, Lou Ferrigno after doing a year's worth of strength training. No, you're going to get strong. That's what you're going to get. So I don't think you need to. There's a lot of people who focus on, the butt. The butt is the big thing. Well, if you do deadlifts and you do squats, you're going to work that. And I don't think you necessarily need to do anything differently, but you just have to do it. You have to train. And there's a lot of women out there that do train like that do the deadlifts and the bench presses and the squats and everything else, and they look proportionate to their own body. And so I don't think necessarily you need to do it. I think you have to get over that fear. That's the hardest part, I would say, is to get over the fear that, thinking that you're going to end up looking big and bulky and you're going to look like a guy. And that's not true. You won't.
Yeah, I'm also a hard no on this. I've been trying to get too big and bulky since I started working out when I was like 18. It's not that easy, ladies. I don't really think you have to worry about it too much. So, should women and men do different workouts and exercises? No, absolutely not. They can do the exact same thing. Definitely a hard no. Last question. Well, we did get a question on intermittent fasting, but I think we could probably do a whole episode on that. So I'm going to save that one, put a pin in that one, bookmark it. Last question. With the winter months rolling in and the weather changing, motivation levels may drop and make it more difficult to take that trip to the gym every day. How do you combat workout fatigue? And before you answer, I know for you it's as easy as walking down 2 flights of stairs, but for the general population, it's not that simple.
Well, I've lived in Northeast Ohio my whole life, so I know that. I know how difficult that can be. The number one key is habit. Once you have a habit instilled, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if it's nice out. It doesn't matter if it's 10 degrees out. I still got up regardless of the day and still went to the gym. It became a habit, and it became a point where it was more important to get my lift in because of how I know I would feel. I'm addicted to that feeling. Like it became an
endorphin rush, dude.
It became an addiction in a good way where if I didn't get that in, I felt sloppy. I felt unaccomplished. I didn't feel successful. And so for me, that was so much more important than saying, well, it's 10 degrees outside and it's dark. That, like, once you get past that, and for some people that might be hard, but put on some extra clothes, start your car. Just when you get up, start your car so it's warm by the time you get in. You got to set yourself up for success before you get up so that you can get rolling. So prepare yourself the night before. Prepare yourself the night before so that when you get up, it's easy. Whether it's having the clothes laid out or the shoes laid out or whatever you needed to do, make sure that you're set so you're not wasting time in the morning. You can get up and go, and it just becomes an automatic thing. And once it's an automatic thing, it doesn't matter what day, what time, what temperature is, you're going and you're thriving.
Well said. Yeah, I don't have anything to add to that. That was awesome. I agree. Just make it a habit, make it a lifestyle. It's not easy, but that's the key. Any final thoughts, pal? I got no other questions. Anything else you want to talk about?
No, I think I'm good, man. That was a pretty good session, I'd say. If there's, for anyone else that's got questions, make sure to check us out. Look at the website, morninglifter.com. I'm on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. All handles are at Morning Lifter, so you can hit up me, hit up Bryce, ask us questions. It's we're still working through finding our true rhythm here. So it's still early. Bear with us. We'll make sure it gets better each week.
Yep. I just read an article posted by, I think it was Elite FTS. It said, each day you go into the gym, you might not have your best, but you need to make sure that your best gets better over time. So as long as you're working towards making your best better, and you're on the right path. I think that's what you and I are doing, pal. So
that's a good point.
All right. Well, until next time, guys, stay strong, stay active, and make some gains.